of the 17 Mile Horror, and we also have Rogue Pumpkin Patch Ale in a cup. So the reading will get worse as I go along. The 17 Mile Horror, Chapter 20. As Sam got a cup of coffee and settled back in his favorite chair in his office, an uneasy feeling came over him. He couldn't explain it, yet he felt as though someone or thing was watching his every move. Come on, Sam, he told himself. Knock it off. You've seen a lot tonight. Things that couldn't even explain, but that's no reason to get spooked. He got out a report sheet and placed it in his typewriter. Final report on the Edward Hines killings. He headed the report. He tried to put together in his mind the events that led to the capture of the killer, Pete Worthington. How could he explain in a report that Pete acted the way he did because of his love for his sister? How could he explain that this young man who wouldn't harm a fly did what he did because he needed his sister's guidance? Even after death, he had to come up with a motive. Right on line 10 was the word, motive for felony. He could not in his right mind come up with a motive, at least not one that made any sense. The phone on his desk rang, startling him. Chief Guthrie speaking. Sam, this is George. I just got the word. Congratulations. I knew that I could depend on you. How did you finally manage to catch the bastard? It was the mayor. Sure, he was happy. I probably saved your job, you son of a bitch. Thanks, George, but if you don't mind, I've got to get this report finished. Who would have thought that it was a guy from one of our finest families, eh, Sam? Goes to show you, you never know what people are thinking. I know that you're busy. I just wanted to be the first to pat you on the back. See you tomorrow. Wear your best uniform. I've got reporters coming from all over to get a story on this. Good night, Sam. You lousy bastard, Sam swore to himself. He picked up the phone and dialed the dispatcher. Plymouth Police Department. Ron, this is Sam. Look, I've got to fill out this report and I don't want any more calls. Do you understand? Gotcha, Chief. By the way, congratulations. Sam hung up after he thanked his dispatcher. Why did he feel that he had just turned in his best friend? Sure, Pete was someone whom he had known all of his life, but he was a killer in the eyes of the law, and he was the law. He had only done his duty, yet should he smear his name before all the people of the community? Why not let it rest? He knew that the district attorney would have a hard time making a case against Pete, at least in the condition he was now in. What book is this? This is The 17 Mile Horror by Dick Gessler, an independent 1981 novel that I'm almost finished with. I've read 19 chapters so far on this godforsaken channel. Yeah, you can go back and listen to all of them. Yet should he smear his name before all the people of this community? Why not let it rest? Hello, Bobs. Thanks for the sub, Bubba. Coop Sav? Are you related to the other Sav that was here the other day? He knew that the district attorney would have a hard time making a case against Pete, at least in the condition he was in now. Yet the district attorney was going to ask him why did he set such an elaborate trap for Pete if he wasn't sure he was the killer. Sam was sure that Pete could not plead insanity for all the murders. They were going to shoot for premeditated murder, one. His report would have a great bearing on the outcome of the case. He could slant his report to say that the accused was not rational in the commission of his crimes. Hello, Adrian. If he did that, Pete might have a chance to get off the hook and end up at the Northville State Hospital for a few years, not in prison. By that time, who knew what might happen? He suddenly felt the same closeness that he had felt in Ginny's room. He loosened his collar. He started to type the report when the room became suddenly ice cold. Sam got up from his chair and checked the window. It was closed. It wasn't cold out anyway. It was a warm evening. As he turned to sit back down at his desk, he saw it. As he watched, a mist began to form in the chair across from his desk. As he watched, terrified, he saw Ginny sitting in the chair in the same dressing gown that Nancy had worn only an hour before. Sam was frozen where he stood. As he watched the ghastly specter seated in his office, her long arm rose from her side, and with long pointed fingers she pointed to the typewriter. He watched horrified as she shook her head no. Sam managed to move his legs and walk toward his desk. It was so cold in the room that he could see his breath. As he got a closer look at the apparition, he noticed that the face had the appearance of a demon. The eyes were red, the lips curled into a hideous snarl. Spit was coming out of the mouth. As he stood there, he could hear it make grunting sounds deep in her throat. My God, he thought, Dr. Schwartz was right. She has turned into a demon. What do you want from me? He finally managed to say. The hideous mouth opened, and a voice sounded like it was coming from deep within her, said, He must pay. He must suffer. He will suffer until his dying days. The ghost ain't messing around. But what can I do? I am not his judge. He had just gotten the words out when a strong wind, which seemed to be coming from her mouth, blew the papers on his desk all over the small office. He shielded his face with his hands, then just as suddenly as the wind had started up, it stopped. He took his hands away from his eyes and looked in the direction of the chair. She was gone. Sam fell into his black leather chair, completely shaken by what he had just experienced. He couldn't believe what had just happened to him. He couldn't believe what he had seen tonight. He reached for the cup of coffee on his desk. Somehow it had managed to stay upright. The coffee was cold, but in his state he didn't mind. He gathered the fallen papers from the floor and laid them back in a pile on his desk. After he had the office in a reasonable state of order, he went back to finish his report. He looked at the report that he had just started. In the typewriter, in place of the report, was a blank sheet of typing paper. The only words written on it were, He is guilty. He will pay. Epilogue. The following March, a great deal had happened since Pete's capture and the macabre incidents in her room. Tony started to date Nancy, and they found out that they were in love. He asked her to marry him, and she accepted. They planned the June wedding. Nancy had a few months of horrible nightmares, but just as Dr. Schwartz predicted, she overcame her fears, and now the incident, as far as she was concerned, was forgotten. Dr. Schwartz paid weekly visits to Pete at the mental hospital. Although the doctor tried every method that he knew of, he was still not able to break through the barrier of Pete's subconscious. He refused to try to remember what had occurred. Dr. Schwartz was constantly being hounded by the district attorney. The district attorney wanted Pete declared mentally competent so that he could resume his case against him. Dr. Schwartz insisted that the boy was still not rational and therefore could not speak for himself. Whenever the mention of his sister came up, he would get a strange expression on his face, but seemed unable to even recall that he had a sister. It was a year since Ginny had died. Dr. Schwartz asked Tony and Nancy to come over to his office. He mentioned that it was quite important. Good afternoon, doctor. We came as soon as we got your call. Sarah told me it was important. Yes, I'm happy that you are so punctual. Come into my office, please. Sit down. I have some news for you both from Pete. Tony showed Nancy a chair and took one next to her. It seems that Pete thought a lot of you, Tony. He asked me to ask you for a favor. I've told him that it might be years before he is completely cured. He understands. He would like you, Tony, to resume his mortuary business. Tony was shocked by what he heard. I don't know what to say. As you know, doctor, I've been looking around trying to find an opening at some funeral home as an assistant. I finally got a call from a Mr. Greenwood in Northville. He'd like me to start there in 2 weeks. Why, this is just too good to be true. There is something that I feel that I have to mention to you. That is why I ask that you both come to talk with me. Elephant Gamer. How much money? Give me $17 million. There is some things that I feels that I have to mention to you. That is why I ask that you both come to talk to me. What is that, Doctor? Tony asked. I have heard the good news. You two are to be married. I would like to congratulate you both. There is one zing, however, if you are planning to be married, and if you decide to take over the mortuary business for Pete, then you will both naturally live in the mansion, yeah? Why, yes, Doctor, Nancy answered. I guess we will have to. How do you feel about that, Nancy? Well, I haven't thought of it. She thought for a minute, then asked Dr. Schwartz, You think that there might be something that will bring back those demons, those nightmares, don't you? Well, my dear, let me just say this. It is possible that the familiar surroundings could trigger something. It is hard for me to say for sure. Yo, do. I don't know what you're talking about. What would happen is, well, anyone's guess. I just wanted to warn you, and that there is a possibility. You are a strong willed woman, but don't forget, so was Ginny. Dr. Schwartz, you're not insinuating that the spirit or the demon that you told me about would come back to haunt us, are you? There is something that has been bothering me all these months. The demon that Ginny has turned into has promised that Pete would suffer until his dying day. Somehow, in the back of his subconscious, I believe that Pete knows this too. If he admits to that, he has done. Then he is vulnerable to her. The way he is now, he has put up a barrier to protect himself against her. I don't understand, Doctor. Tony looked distraught. How can this affect Nancy and me? I have reason to believe that if she cannot get at Pete, she will take out her vengeance on his closest friends. That would mean that both of you would suffer. Her hatred is so great, and she wants Pete to suffer so much for what he has done to her. She will take every means at her disposal to reach her ends. Dr. Schwartz, I appreciate your concern, but I don't think that we have any more to worry about. She got what she wanted. Pete will be a cripple for life. I think that is suffering enough. Very well. Aziz, that you have made up your mind. I hope that you feels the same way, Nancy. Yes, doctor, I do. I think that she got what she wanted. I can't see how Tony and I enter into the picture. I do want to thank you, though, for thinking enough of us to worry. Zen is settled. I will tell Pete that he doesn't have to worry about his business. After all, his best friend is going to take over for him. The marriage was as planned. Tony and Nancy spent their honeymoon in Florida. On the flight back, Tony could hardly wait to get home and get started in his new undertaking. It was something that he had dreamed of, but figured wouldn't happen for years. The cab pulled up in front of the white mansion. Tony paid the cabbie, and they walked up the front walk to their new home. Nancy smiled as she looked at the fine old mansion. As she looked up at the second story, something caught her eye. In the front window of Ginny's old bedroom, she could see a figure standing in the window. As she looked closer, she recognized who it was. It was the face of the woman that she had seen in the mirror of Ginny's dressing table. The figure was smiling and holding out her hand. Nancy let out a small moan. Why, what's wrong? Tony asked his new bride. Nancy looked up at the figure in the window and said, Nothing, Tony, dear. I'm just glad that we're home at last. As they continued up the walk, the room darkened and the shades were pulled. The end. That's the end. Let's see what the back says. Oh, this is just a recap of part of the story, so I guess that's it. And that's all. Goodbye, bros.